Assalamu alaikum, namaste, Harun Effer. This is Kasankma Keperu with another video for you. In this video, I want to talk about 3 powerful manifestation secrets. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. And if this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications of when I go live or when I upload recorded videos. Also, we have free ebooks. The links are below. Click on those links and you can download a number of those ebooks and start reading, which the ebooks basically expand more on my teachings and talk more about the esoteric. And lastly, you should consider becoming a Patreon supporter. And I'll talk a little bit about that later, but as a supporter, you'll get access to instructional videos, which will go into things like manifestation techniques, how to do a ritual, how to summon spirits, how to communicate with interdimensional beings, all that really cool stuff. So consider supporting us on Patreon. So let us talk about 3 powerful manifestation techniques. I was watching, every now and then I kind of watch other YouTube channels and other so-called spiritualists, gurus, or what have you. And I'm just kind of like, want to get a gauge on what's being taught out there and what is being said. And I came across one young woman's channel. I say young woman because I'm so old. I'm 60 years old. But anyway, I digress. And she bills herself as a spiritual teacher. She has a lot of followers. And I'm not going to get into giving out her name or anything like that. But I watch a channel from time to time, and what I noticed was that she never talks anything about spirituality. It's always about conspiracy theories. And I'm just like, well, are you ever going to talk about the gods? Are you ever going to talk about oracles? Are you going to talk about real spiritual advice? And what I noticed is that you have some out there, not all, who trap you into this whole idea of replacing spirituality with conspiracy theory stuff. And all they essentially talk about is how you're being controlled and you're being manipulated. And yes, those things do exist and they're happening. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that and why you should not focus on that. But it just amazes me how so many people get wrapped up in following that. And a lot of the information that she talks about is just regurgitated from other videos that she's seen. And I can tell that she gets inspired by information that she's read or seen and then regurgitates it. Because every week there is a new conspiracy theory with her, and I'm just like, it's just so amazing that people just hop on board that train and to stay on board. I mean, it's great that you can, find out what the ruling elite is doing, like what's going on in terms of like the food you're eating. Is it being, do you have like chemicals in the food and all that? But there gets to be a point in time where you don't want that type of information saturating your psyche because it can have a very detrimental effect upon you. And when we're talking about reality manifestation, the more you focus on something, the more it expands, the more it becomes your reality. So if you are consistently have a diet of conspiracy theory, David Icke, what is it, reptilian stuff, or flat earth stuff, is the moon real or not? If you consistently have a diet of that, then you are reinforcing that reality, which is why I tend to talk a lot about spiritual elevation. I actually go into the techniques of how to live a spiritual life, of you venerating and celebrating the gods, and really just trying to improve the quality of your life. Because I don't want you guys walking around here humdrum thinking there's nothing you can do because the Illuminati or the ruling elite, is dictating your life and has control over what happens to you every step of the way. So I just want you to be aware of that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be supporting her channel or channels like hers, but what I'm saying is that, like with any diet, or in fact, the I-ching talks about this in the 27th hexagram, nurturing. What are you nurturing your spirit with? You don't want to indulge too much into one thing, because then it will create an imbalance and the pendulum will swing back and hit you pretty hard. You know what I mean? So as the Magi's come into the chat room, I would love to do a couple of readings for you guys. So if you guys have questions, please put the questions in the chat box and I'll do a quick reading for you. And in the back here, I have the goddess Sekhmet. And on Patreon, I'm going to do just a little special video on her to talk about her power and how you can utilize her power. And I'll give more of an understanding of who she is and what she does, you know, daughter of Ra, you know, and, you know, the whole idea of the Tibetans and how they paid homage to her. All right. So let's go into these manifestation techniques. Now, the one thing that I want to do is to empower you. I don't want you to become a victim to happenstance. I don't want you to feel like that this world is so corrupt and so misguided and so evil, or what we call as full of Sahu people, that you have no say in how things unfold, that you are not going to be instrumental in bringing about a revolution. In fact, the mere fact that you're here and you exist is because Neter, Nebetur, God, Yahweh, Source, needs you at this point in time in this reality. God needs you here to help to shift the planet to a new vibrational frequency and to help bring about this revolution. So you are essential to the ecosystem here, or else you wouldn't be here. God does not create superfluous things. So your function is vital. And part of that is to realize who you are, your divinity, that you're a God man, God woman, and that you have extraordinary powers. And when I say that, that is not science fiction, that's science fact. You have extraordinary powers that you have yet to come into a realization of. Get rid of the mumbo jumbo of meditate, be at peace. That's great, but you can move mountains by your very thoughts. And when you start to embark on this journey and you take the steps necessary toward the realization of your power and your divinity, and you start to see what you can really do, you're going to want more. You're going to want to do more. You're going to want more power. And it's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. So this is something to where you can actually see results. It is not theoretical. It is not intellectual masturbation. It is here for you to apply it in your life and to witness the results before you. And this is going to have an enormous impact on the quality of your life. It's going to improve everything that you do. And if it doesn't, then discard it. I've always said this. I said that if you follow a teaching that is not benefiting you and is not showing results, then you need to move on to something else. And I have done that within my spiritual career, where I followed a number of different gurus and I didn't see any results. So I had to move on to the next person. Doesn't mean that their teachings didn't work. It just didn't work for me. You know, maybe my core frequency wasn't vibrating or aligning to what they were teaching. So I had to move on to something that worked. For example, if I can give you an example, I learned very early on that ceremonial magic or ritual magic was not something that was technically for me, even though I practiced that in the past life. Meaning that, you know, it wasn't for me to put together an elaborate shrine with the herbs and the sacrificing of the animals and doing all of that, that I could achieve those same results by practicing, you know, reality shifting or shifting to a parallel world where I could manifest things that I wanted. Now, that doesn't mean I don't do rituals or I don't mix up concoctions or herbs and put together spells. Yes, I still do those. But the majority or the lion's share of my focus has been on reality manifestation, shifting to a parallel world. And I have gained an enormous amount of knowledge in doing that and finding what works for me. And also to understand that was an area that I needed to focus on. I went to God. I went to God through the oracles, Oracle Tahuti, and said, should I focus on ceremonial magic or ritual magic, or should I more focus on reality transurfing? Let's call it that. And the Oracle was saying, for you, Kasanka, you need to focus on reality transurfing. That will work better for you. So that was what I kind of honed in on and said, I'm going to perfect this and master this. And I saw immediate results for myself, you know? And for you, it may be the exact opposite. Maybe the rituals, maybe something that works better for you than reality transurfing. It's how you're made up. And let's not forget that we're all living in a different reality, a subjective reality. We live in different time-space continuums. You do not exist in the same time-space continuum that I exist in. So your reality is far different than the reality that I am currently experiencing. That's a fact. And for you to embark on this journey, it's going to call for you to have to look at things in a very, very different way. Very different way. Or else it's just not going to work. I had a teacher who said, you know, you can't be half a gangster. It's either you're all in or you're all out. So if you're looking for enormous power, if you're looking to manifest the world of your dreams, then you've got to be all in. And I do understand, because this happened to me, in order to be all in, you need to witness or see some tangible evidence that this works. I totally get that. And I agree with you. You should, there's nothing wrong with asking for that. In fact, I asked one teacher, I said, would you demonstrate something for me, or could I see what you can do? And he said, no. I said, well, I'm not going to learn from you. And many of these so-called gurus or new age people, or whatever you want to call them, on the internet can't show you anything. They can't demonstrate anything for you, because they just regurgitate information they've read in books or watched in other YouTube videos. And I've told people time and time again, when people come to visit me, and they do probably every other weekend, and they spend time with me in my kind of workshops or my boot camps, whatever you want to call it, I demonstrate stuff in front of them, and they get amazed, because I'm not somebody who's just going to get caught up in theory or get reading books and people will say, Kasanka is deep. Well, I mean, I appreciate the compliment, but I want you to see that this stuff works, and that therefore I can demonstrate it. And I love demonstrating it. I do it all the time. But I don't want to go out there and demonstrate it for someone who's not really serious about it or really wants to devote themselves to the teaching. And a lot of times, a lot of people I find just aren't really serious. And a lot of them don't really understand or realize the amount of wealth of knowledge that I have and I possess. So they take this whole thing lightly. And that's not all their fault, because a lot of those internet gurus, the way they teach it is very airy, very etheric. And therefore, the masses of people don't look at it as something that's really serious, because I'm very serious about this, or else I wouldn't have been doing this for this many number of years. And you can go back and look at all my videos and see how I started out years ago. And I actually started these videos when I got out of priesthood, because I wanted to continue my studies and explore more and see what was out there. So let's get into these 3 manifestation techniques. Now, you know that there are other things out there. Of course, we talked about reality manifestation, the secret, law of attraction. There's all kinds of good stuff out there that you can refer to. But what I kind of disseminate is what I believe has shown results for me, and it's tested. This is why I give it to you. I could go off and talk about a lot of different techniques that some I have not tried, others I have tried and have not worked. So I impart to you that which I believe has works and has shown measurable results. That's what is important. Now, there is the behind the scenes stuff that you don't see that I get into, because I am very much into using secret herbs and powders and oils and sigils and symbols and spirits and working with interdimensional beings. I do get into all of that. But those are things that it would be impossible for me to really demonstrate and teach you on YouTube. So there's no point in me getting into that. But those are things that I do behind the scenes as a practicing magician or priest. But what I'm going to give you is still powerful enough to help transform your life and to make meaningful and measurable results. So there's 3 techniques that we're going to cover, and they're fairly simple techniques to digest, but the application can be a little bit involved. But don't worry about that, because the sacrifice you're making in following these techniques are going to be well worth it, because you're going to get a lot in place as a result. You're going to see that. So El Glass says, Hatepu, I think I heard you say we can ask questions for readings later on. Yeah, if you got a question, put it in the chat box and I will do a quick reading for you. All right, so the first technique, all right, for, now this technique is, again, formulate an objective, something that you want, something that you're passionate about, whatever that objective is. If you want a mate, if you want a new mate, you know, you may think that your mate's not working out, so you want to give her your pink slip, or you want to give her her walking papers and say goodbye, and you're upgrading and you want to get a new mate. Okay, this technique can work for you. If you're looking to get, you're saying to yourself, boy, I would love, my car is not dependable. I would love to get a new car to get to working back. This technique is great for helping you get there. Or if you just want a boatload of money, hey, you can try and use this technique for that purpose as well. All right, so the first technique is this. There is 2 things that we'll need to do. The first thing is you'll need to fast for at least 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours, okay? And the next thing is you're going to break your normal sleep habit. This one engages a technique called sleep deprivation. So you're not going to get your typical 8 hours of sleep. You may be getting like 2 or 3 hours per night. Now I'm talking about practicing this over the course of 3 days, okay? So you're going to engage in fasting, and then you're going to engage in getting about 3 hours a night of sleep. Okay. Now, what this does is it clears your body, your physical body, the Geb aspect of you. That's the physical body, the Geb, or Seb, however you want to pronounce it, the Cometian term. And what this does is it clears also the etheric body, or the spirit, of any toxins or any negative chemicals in the body and in the spirit. So you're depleting yourself of that. And at this point in time, too, you want to be isolated, meaning you want to have as little contact with people as possible. Now, this is what you want to do. You've written your objectives down. I want you to write your objective down as a present tense, meaning you should look at it as though you've already acquired your objective. You already have it. All right. So, for example, if I want a house, I would think about the house and I would say to myself, you know, like, I love being in my new house. My new house is wonderful. Okay. And you want to embody that feeling. Now, the next thing I want you to do is now this is the process of saturating your spirit with the objective. So when we want something, the way we can acquire it is that we have to get into what I call as a psyche, or a psychic state. That psychic state is a hypnotic state or hypnosis state. Now, many people talk about embodying the feeling or the emotion of having acquired the thing itself, but that's not really true what you're trying to do. Yes, you're trying to get that emotional feeling of having the object of your desire, but that emotion is just getting you to shift to a different vibrational frequency, to a parallel world where you can interact with the very thing that you want. Now, saturating your psyche with the objective is another way of doing that, because it does change the vibrational frequency that you're emanating so that you can shift to that parallel reality. Let me break this down a little bit more, all right? The idea is you need to move from your current psychic state to the psychic state of the objective, all right? How you get there is about saturating your spirit with the very thing that you want so you can change your core vibrational frequency. All right. Or so you can shift your spirit, let's say, to that parallel reality. All right. Now, the thing about this also is you can say, okay, I'm saturating my spirit with the very thing I want. What does that mean? That means in your sphere of awareness, everything you think about encompasses your objective to the point of where it almost borderlines on obsession. That you are so obsessed that you have this myopic view of what you want, and that is the only thing that you allow to enter your purview. All right, that is it. And you're constantly and consistently feeding yourself more and more about that objective. All right, it's the same thing as this. A guy wants this girl he's seen. He thinks she's so beautiful. All he thinks about is her. In his mind, he can smell her. He can see her. He envisions going out and date with her, kissing her, making love with her. And some people will say, well, you're getting obsessed with this girl, which is good because what's happening is that he's now saturating his spirit to where he will get to that psychic level to where he can interact with the woman of his dreams. All right. The way you do that is a lot of people will engage in reading materials or putting up their dream board, meaning photos of the thing they want, whether it be a house or a car. They put up all these photos everywhere. So everywhere they turn, they see images of the thing that they want. That's fine. So you can do that. You can read about, like, for example, if you're trying to obtain $1 million, you can read stories about individuals who have gone from rags to riches. Then you would meditate on this, and then you would recite your mantra. And your mantra can be an actual Vedic mantra that attracts the thing that you want, whether it be health, wealth, or love, whatever it is. There are a bunch of mantras out there. So for 3 days, you want to engage in this. Now let's go back. Number one, you are going to fast. And number two, you're going to engage in what we call sleep deprivation. This clears the body, the physical body, and the spirit to be receptive and to be impregnated with the seed or the idea of what you want. And then when you basically bombard or saturate your psyche with this thing, and that's all you're thinking about for those 3 days and engaging in, and you've isolated yourself from getting distractions, it makes an impression upon the spirit, and it gets down deep into the core of your being to where you connect with source. Now, if I can take this a little bit further, right? Let's look at it this way. In going back into the ancient times, the priests and priestesses would put their physical bodies, their Geb or Seb aspect, through duress. All right. And the way they would do this, they would take long trips in the desert with no food and no water, to where they would almost get to a point where they would pass out or die, to where they could have a revelation, to where they could come in contact with source. And this is many of the stories you read in scriptures or the Bible, to where you have these biblical figures who suddenly one day had a vision, and that comes from putting your psyche or your body through that type of duress. Because what happens is you start connecting with source. So anyway, so this is very similar to that, but you're not going to go to that extreme. But you do want to basically not get as much sleep as you would normally would, meaning 8 hours, because what you want to do is when you don't get that normal amount of sleep, you bridge the gap between the waking and the subconscious state. And that allows for the impregnation of the ideas, and it puts the left brain, the critical faculty, to sleep. So that whatever it is that you're feeding into the right brain or the subconscious mind, it sticks, it stays. Now, you have Buddhist monks, you have other priests and priestesses who would do this. And another technique they would do was they would repeat an affirmation for 1,000, 2,000 times over and over again while sitting in the lotus position. And that's a very difficult position. However it is, you can engage in that, or if you want to do that, that's fine. But the idea is that you are conditioning yourself to accept the idea of the objective of what you want. And you make it a reality by saturating your very being, your very spirit with that idea. Now, one of the things that is a shortcut mechanism to this is that if you have a strong faith and belief in whatever idea you accept, then you could actually manifest that. But a lot of us don't have that strong faith and that strong belief. If I say, well, I think by Saturday I'm going to get $1 million, and I have faith and belief that I'll get it. Well, hey, you will if you are a person who has that type of strong belief system. If you're not, then you'll have to short circuit that, go around that. And by engaging in sleep deprivation and fasting, and then impregnating the spirit with that idea, that then is enough to do the trick. If you don't have that strong enough belief system. All right. Once you do that, there are other techniques that the ancient priests and priestesses engaged in, and that was similar to performing a ritual. They would create an electromagnetic field around them. So say, for example, if I'm sitting in a lotus position, I'm reciting my mantra over and over again, and I have over on the wall pictures of the thing that I want. And I'm just focused on doing this for 3 days. I'm not eating. I'm getting very little sleep. The next thing is you could light incense. And that incense, as it's going, and it's going to ignite your senses. And you can even wear oils, different oils. You can put jasmine on or whatever. But when you ignite the senses, it becomes more real to you. And that activates that aspect or that energy system within you. And the electromagnetic field becomes impregnated around you with the incense and the idea, because thoughts are transferable. Whatever you're thinking of creates a vibrational frequency that travels through the ether and through the incense. So you've created a field around you now that's very powerful. All right. Now, once you have done that sufficiently for the 3 days, you then go into what we call as the amen state. And that's the state of letting it go. Go back to your normal routine of eating and sleeping. And at that point, release it. Don't think about the objective anymore. Give it its space to manifest and watch for the results. All right. That is your first technique. Let me just greet the Mad Guys really quick that came into the chat room real quick here. El Glass Hetepu, Robin, Namaste, Ma'at Sun, Hetep, and Joe Mo Hetepu. Who else do we have here? Kofi. Kofi Hetep. Okay. Wide Spirit, Hetepu. Harmony, Hetep. All right. So that was the first technique. And as I said before, that's a very powerful technique because it does give you the results you're looking for, but it does require that you engage in that sleep deprivation and that fasting. Okay. And this is an ancient technique. This is nothing I'm just inventing. This has been done by priests and priestesses thousands of years before I was even an idea, you know. Okay. The next technique is this. All right. And this is what we call is revision. So let's say that you were played lotto and you didn't hit the numbers and you're disappointed. Okay. So what we want to engage in at that point is revision. We understand that the only moment or the only thing that exists is the now moment. There is no past, there is no future. So whatever happens in this, whatever you think about or do takes place within this now moment, and it shapes what you perceive as the future and the past. So let me explain in detail. So you play lotto, you didn't win, you're disappointed. The technique you can engage in is revision, meaning, and this is also known as contrast. So what you can do is say to yourself that or create the scenario that you did actually win. Okay. And embody the emotion of winning and act as if you won. Now, you're not lying to yourself because in another parallel world, you actually did win. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because all scenarios already exist, and you want to access or come into contact with that scenario where you won. And the way to do that is to act as if and embody that emotion. Now, what is this going to do? This is going to do a number of things. Okay. What we tend to do on a daily basis, if something doesn't work our way, we get disappointed and we embody a negative emotion. And when you do that, we play that scenario over and over again, and it becomes a reference point for how we perceive the future. Oh, well, I never win at those games, or I never do well at those type of jobs, or I can never marry someone as good looking as Kasank, whatever. So this is called reference experience. We base our belief system and how we perceive the future on how our past has gone. And what happens is when you take an idea and you empower it with an emotion, it becomes a belief system. And we know that you are a reality generating machine, and all beliefs are manifested here in linear space time. So when you didn't win the lottery and you embody the disappointment of not winning, you created a reference point. And now in the future, when you play, the spirit will reference that and it will manifest that negative reality again and again and again. But however, if you have engaged in a technique of revision, where you say to yourself, I won, and you embody the emotion of winning, in the future, when you play, the subconscious mind, or I shouldn't say subconscious mind, but your mind will access that reference point. And the only reference point it has to access is one of you winning, then it will manifest in what you perceive to be a future event of you winning. Do you understand? So this technique works really well when you look back on your life and you see disappointments, and you can literally just start to write down things in your past of where you've experienced disappointment or loss, and then engage in revision. Rewrite those things. And I do this with a lot of people in the state of hypnosis. I take them into a trance state and I have them relive the experience, but then rewrite how the experience went. Case in point, I remember when I first started learning hypnosis, my hypnotherapist, my teacher, one of the first things he did was he put me into hypnosis and had me relive childhood trauma. And to deal with that, he gave me new parents. He says, I am going to revise this so that you'll have a different mother, a different father, and you'll have a memory of them treating you very well, very well. So whenever I think back to my childhood, I think back and I have very positive feelings about it. And then when I have positive feelings about that perceived past, it directly affects the now moment, this present, and how I act and the things I'll manifest involuntarily. Because when you are using the past as a reference point, you're not aware that you're doing it, but your psyche is doing it. And it's going to manifest those things in your life. This is why we call things having bad luck or having bad karma, which reality is you're referencing things in your past. And because you have erroneously labeled them as misfortune, or you're not skilled in those areas, maybe you're not a good track runner, you can't play basketball, you suck at math. When you are referencing those things, all you're really doing is commanding the spirit to manifest more of those things. So the best way to tackle that, and see, you're manifesting whether you want to or not. It's on autopilot. You are manifesting every minute, every microsecond. You're not consciously aware of you doing it because you're so powerful, because you're God. You can do things without you even being consciously aware of it. You've got the planets in the solar system orbiting the sun in the exact synchronous order, and you're not even aware you're doing that, but you are doing it. So at this present moment, you're referencing things that happened in your past and you're manifesting them. So what I'm saying to you is start to audit what has happened to your past and now rewrite it to be one of a favorable scenario. And then embody that with a positive emotion. Therefore, you will now start to manifest positive situations that are similar to that in the now moment and in the future. So that's what you want to do. All right, so that's the second technique. Also, another thing that you want to do on that is you're going to need to detach from your reality, because we have an interest, a vested interest in how things play out, right? And we are so attached to this reality that we don't believe that good things can happen to us, or that these things can really take root and blossom. We don't believe it can happen. For us to accept that belief system, and our ancestors in ancient wisdom, they created figures like Osir, Jesus, outside external figures that we can place our faith in, that we can now say, I believe that he can work a miracle in my life. Well, you don't need that. You can believe in yourself to perform that miracle. If you learn to detach from reality and understand that reality is really a delayed reaction, that what you're seeing around you in the physical is not real time. And that what is real time is what you imagine. And that when you play that scenario over and over again, you create density. Because when you first envision it, it is not solid yet. But the more you play out that scenario and indulge in it, the more dense it becomes, to where it then manifests in this fourth dimensional plane. Because we know that in 5D, the minute you think of something, it manifests. So we know and we know that who we are is consciousness, and that we really exist in 5D. 5D is oneness. But for the purposes of Neter and working with Neter, because we're in agreement with God, and God needs us, because God wants to have an experience. And the only way that God can have experience is to create individuality and to create the 3D realm of duality. So we are assisting God by having this individualistic experience, which is really Maya. It's an illusion that there's individuality, because there's really not. But we have to have that as a foundation first, so that we can gain experience, because where there is oneness in 5D, there can be no experience. There can be nothing to interact with to gain the experience. Where there is individuality, as in 3D, then you have something to interact with, and therefore you have an experience. And the only thing that is real is the experience. Okay, so let's go on to the third technique, the last technique. All right, and this technique makes use of something called gratitude. Very simple technique. This technique is about using every minute of your day and seeing things in a very elated and positive way. Meaning that you use the opportunities in your life and you look at the things and you say, I am happy, or I show gratitude for having these little things. And I'm happy that these things are in my life. Now, understand things may not be going your way. But again, what we talked about was detaching from reality, not accepting that. And in fact, doing the reverse and feeling positive and happy about what's going on in your life, despite the fact that there may be what we call some negativity. Feeling good, learning to invoke the feeling. Because my aunt is the goddess Heteru, and Heteru tells me that joy comes from within. You invoke joy. Joy is not dependent upon external circumstances. You can experience joy whenever you want to. So if you're in a situation where things may not be working your way, then take your mind to a time where something really positive happened to you, and then allow yourself at that particular moment in time to experience joy. And when you are experiencing that joy as much as you can throughout your day, and you're holding on to that state, what happens? It tells the subconscious mind to manifest more of that because you're God. So when you're feeling elated and having that state, that's going to be a reference point, and that you're going to manifest more of that feeling as you go along, Because when your subconscious mind is trying to reference something and all it can reference is a positive state, it's going to produce more of that. The trick is we want to purge ourselves of negative states, which is very hard to do. So what we do is very similar to the first technique, is we bombard our psyche with positive thoughts and ideas to create positive states within us. And the more we hold on to that, the more we show gratitude. It is like a drug where your body, your physical body will actually want more of it, endorphins, it'll want more of it. So it'll work to create situations and scenarios that'll give you that feeling. So I want you to start living your life in celebration of the goddess Heteru, Hathor, and abiding by her principles of expressing joy as much as possible, even in the face of adversity. And what this will do is condition your spirit to invoke that feeling whenever you want, because all those feelings are just states or hypnotic states that can be triggered at will. Think about that. We control our states. We don't do it because the ruling elite have created a society that triggers us and creates bad and negative states, because that's what they want to do. And they feed off that negative energy. It feeds them. So you have to counteract that so that you can create the reality of your dreams. And the way to do that is first, well, put it this way. People were saying, well, how are you good at hypnosis? How do you do that? And people would see me like put others into a hypnotic state, and without even those people even realizing they were in hypnosis. I say it first starts with me putting myself into the state that I want them to experience. So if I want, for example, this woman to feel an orgasm, I have to first put myself in that state for me to get her in there. Or if I want someone to, for example, to experience good fortune, I would want to put them in a hypnotic state to where they can experience good fortune, then attract that. I would have to first put myself in that state, if that makes sense, if you're understanding what I'm saying there. Okay, great. Awesome. So those are the 3 techniques that you can start utilizing right away. And either one of those techniques can work really well for you. And I've tried to make it so that they're simple to use and you can just go right out there, start right out the gate using those techniques. Any questions? Any questions, class? Kofi, explain that, because you say it's like the movie Solaris, and I do love that movie, but I don't know what you mean by it's like the movie Solaris. I'm not understanding how you're seeing a similarity there. All right, El Glass, you're asking the question. All right, you got a long question there. It's like, what is the Oracle's advice on my possibility of taking a trip to San Antonio in September? So you've got 3 questions in there. All right, you've got taking a trip in September. Should I even take the trip? or I'm not even sure if I should take it this year. So guys, when you want to go to the Oracle, ask the question, you have to break it down. A lot of people don't know how to ask the Oracle questions. So what they do is they embed their questions with 2 or 3 questions, and then you're not going to get a very straightforward answer. It's going to be convoluted. So you have to be very specific when you do an Oracle reading. All right. You can't throw everything in including the kitchen sink into the question. Oh, okay, that's Kofi. That's great. When I truly realized I am spirit having a human experience, that alone was enough for great joy every day. I love that. That is awesome, man. That is so awesome. Oh, I get you there. If you guys haven't seen the movie Solaris, you should check it out. It's a really good movie. That's true. He says the movie gave you what you deeply want. Yes, yes, I remember. Yeah, that was a really. I don't think a lot of people got that movie. It was very it was a little slow paced, but it was deep, and it was really the epitome of sci-fi. Hatepu Hawkeye, how you doing? Hawkeye, you're saying, what if you give it too much space? The only way you can give it too much space if you don't really care about your objective and having it manifest. If I'm reading you correctly and what your question is. Sue-Ann, you're asking, you said, peace, Kassank. Perhaps you've already answered this question, so I apologize in advance. Who created the ruling elite? I don't understand that question. What do you mean, who created the ruling elite? Who said anybody created them? You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand your question. That's like saying, who created the government? You understand what I'm saying? If you understand history, then you'll realize that dictators came to power. Civilizations rose and fell. So we're not talking about who created the ruling elite. The question you should be asking is, how did they come to power, or why did we allow them to come into power? Probably is better, a better question to ask than who created them. You know what I mean? What I can say is this: is that they do not exist on every um, parallel world. They don't exist on every parallel world, but you have made an agreement to come to this world where they do exist for the purposes of having this particular experience. That I can say that you made that agreement. All right. So with that, I want to thank you, Magi, for attending. I'm going to make this short. So this is Kasak Ma Keperu, son of Ma'at and Judy. My aunt is a beautiful goddess, Heteru. Until my next broadcast, Amin Ra.